Navigating the treacherous terrain, risk assessment of the opportunity. Bidding isn't just about the potential rewards, it's also about the risks. This lecture is about identifying and managing those risks to increase your chances of success. The importance of risk assessment. Every bid has risks. If you ignore them, you might waste resources on a losing cause, create an unrealistic proposal, overstretch your team, or even lose money and damage your reputation. Strategic advantages of risk assessment. A good risk assessment process helps you make informed go-no-go decisions, develop a realistic bid strategy, allocate resources effectively, improve your proposal, negotiate better, plan for mitigation, and protect your profitability and reputation. A framework for risk assessment of the opportunity. We'll use a structured framework to approach risk assessment. It involves identifying the risks, analyzing them, evaluating them, planning how to mitigate them, and then monitoring them throughout the bid. Risk identification. Where do risks come from? Brainstorm with your team, look at past projects, scrutinize the RFP, analyze the market and competitors, assess the client, and be honest about your own capabilities. Risk analysis and evaluation. Analyze the likelihood of each risk and its potential impact. Use a risk matrix to visualize this. Assign a score. Prioritize the risks so you know which ones to focus on first. Risk mitigation planning. For the most important risks, create a plan to deal with them. You can avoid the risk altogether, reduce its likelihood or impact, transfer it to someone else, like insurance, or accept it and have a backup plan. Risk monitoring and control. Risk assessment isn't a one-time thing. You need to keep an eye on the risks throughout the bid process and even during the project if you win. Regularly review, identify new risks, reassess existing ones, and have contingency plans in place. All right, so when we're thinking about risk, and we always need to be thinking about risk in bidding, it helps to break things down into categories. This isn't just an academic exercise. It's a practical way to make sure we don't miss anything important. So let's go through these categories one by one, and I'll give you some examples to make them really clear. First, we have strategic risks. These are the risks that can throw off our whole business plan, our long-term goals. For instance, lack of strategic alignment. Imagine a software company, right? Their thing is cloud solutions, that's what they're good at. Now, if they decide to bid on a project that forces them to build old-school on-premise software, that's a strategic risk. It pulls them away from their strengths, it distracts them from where they're trying to go as a company. Or potential negative impact on reputation. Let's say a construction company decides to bid on a project for a client who's known for cutting corners, for being unethical. Even if they win that bid, it could damage the construction company's good name. That's a reputation risk. Buyer. Then there's opportunity cost. This is a tricky one. Imagine a consulting firm. They put all their energy into a small, not very important bid. But while they're doing that, a much bigger, much better opportunity comes along, and they're too busy to go after it. That's the risk of missing out on something better, because you're tied up with something less valuable. Okay, next up, financial risks. These are the ones that hit us in the wallet, the ones that affect our money. A classic is unrealistic budget. You bid way too low just to win the contract, and then you end up losing money on the project. Happens all the time. Unfavorable payment terms are another big one. The client says, yeah, we'll pay you, but it'll be 90 days after you finish. That can create a real cash flow crunch for your company. Then you've got potential for cost overruns. Especially in complex projects, things go wrong, unexpected problems pop up, and your costs spiral out of control. And of course, there's the client's financial instability. If they're in trouble, they might not be able to pay you, or they might even cancel the whole project. All right, let's move on to operational risks. These are the risks that make it hard for us to actually do the work, to deliver what we promised. Like, insufficient internal resources. You bid on a project that needs skills your team doesn't have, and you end up scrambling and delivering something subpar. Tight deadlines are a huge operational risk. You don't have enough time to do the job right, you make mistakes, and everyone's stressed out. If you bid on something with highly complex technical requirements that you don't fully grasp, you're setting yourself up for failure. Dependence on unreliable partners or subcontractors is another one. If they mess up, it reflects badly on you. And then there's unclear scope of work. If the RFP is vague about what the client wants, you're likely to have misunderstandings and arguments later on. Next, we've got competitive risks. These are the risks that come from the fact that you're competing with other companies for this business. For example, strong competitors. If you're up against a company that's bigger, has more experience, or has a better reputation, you're at a disadvantage. Unfavorable pricing pressures. If your competitors are likely to bid super low, you might have to lower your prices, which cuts into your profits. And then there's lack of a clear competitive advantage. If you don't give the client a good reason to choose you over everyone else, you're going to struggle. Okay, almost done. Let's talk about contractual and legal risks. These are the risks that come from the legal side of things, the contract itself. Botany. Unfavorable terms and conditions. The contract might be very one-sided, putting all the risk on you. Intellectual property issues. You might accidentally use something you don't have the right to use, and you get sued. Potential for legal disputes. Some clients are just more likely to sue you, even over small things. And then there are complex compliance requirements. If the project involves regulations you're not familiar with, you could get into trouble. Finally, we have client-related risks. These are the risks that come specifically from who the client is. Treen. Like unclear or changing requirements. The client doesn't know what they want, or they keep changing their mind, which makes your job much harder. Difficult client stakeholders. Some client teams are just hard to work with. Demanding, unreasonable, that kind of thing. And again, there's the client's financial instability. If they're not in good shape, your payment is at risk. And then there's the potential for delays initiated by the client. They're slow to give you feedback, slow to make decisions, and it holds up the whole project. So that's a comprehensive overview of the different types of risks we need to be aware of when we're evaluating a bidding opportunity. It's a lot to think about, but it's essential if you want to be successful. All right, let's talk about how artificial intelligence AI is changing the game when it comes to risk assessment and bidding. Now, AI isn't going to replace human judgment entirely, but it can be a really powerful tool to help us be more efficient and more thorough. Think about it. RFPs can be massive documents, right? Hundreds of pages sometimes, and there's so much data involved. Past bid data, market data, client information. AI is great at processing all that information quickly and spotting patterns that we might miss. So here's how it can actually help us with risk assessment. First off, there's automated RFP analysis. AI tools can be trained to scan an RFP and automatically pick out clauses or requirements that might signal a risk. For example, it could flag phrases like strict penalties, unlimited liability, or extremely tight deadlines. This saves us a ton of time in manually sifting through the document. Then, there's historical data analysis. If you have a database of your past bids, wins, and losses, it can analyze that data to identify patterns. It might find, for instance, that you consistently lose bids when you bid for a certain type of client, or that projects in a particular industry always have a high risk of cost overruns. This helps you make smarter decisions about future bids. It can also be used for predictive analytics. By analyzing market trends, economic indicators, and other data, it can try to predict the likelihood of certain risks occurring. For example, it might predict that the price of a key material is likely to increase, which could impact the profitability of a construction bid. Another area where AI shines is in risk scoring and prioritization. Remember that risk matrix we talked about? It can automate the process of assigning scores to different risks based on their likelihood and impact. This helps you quickly prioritize which risks need the most attention. And finally, there's a really interesting application called sentiment analysis. It can analyze client communications, emails, meeting notes, even social media posts, to try to gauge their mood and identify any potential concerns or dissatisfaction. This can give you early warnings about potential client-related risks. So AI is really changing the way we approach risk in bidding, making it more data-driven and proactive. Let's get practical and look at a specific example of how we might actually tell an AI tool to help us with risk assessment. This slide shows a prompt that's basically the instructions we give to the AI. So imagine we're using a fancy AI-powered bid management system. We've uploaded our RFP, and now we want the AI to analyze it for risks. We might give it a prompt like this. Analyze this RFP document and identify all clauses or requirements that could pose a significant risk to our organization in terms of financial implications, operational challenges, or legal liabilities. For each identified risk, provide a brief description and suggest potential mitigation strategies. Let's break down what's so good about this prompt. Analyze this RFP document. We're clearly telling the AI what to work with. Identify all clauses or requirements. We're asking it to pinpoint specific parts of the RFP. Pose a significant risk to our organization. We're focusing its attention on the most important risks, financial implications, operational challenges, or legal liabilities. We're giving it categories of risk to look for, to guide its analysis, provide a brief description. We're asking for an explanation of why something is a risk, suggest potential mitigation strategies. We're going beyond just identifying the problem. We want the AI to help us find solutions. See how detailed and specific that is? The better your prompt, the better the AI's output will be. You wouldn't just say, "Hey AI, find risks." You need to give it clear instructions to get useful results. This kind of prompt can help you quickly get a summary of the key risks in an RFP, which you can then review and refine with your team. To wrap up this lecture on risk assessment, let's recap the key things to remember. Risk assessment is crucial for informed decisions and successful bids. Don't just jump into a bid without thinking about what could go wrong. It's about being strategic and smart, not just optimistic. A structured framework helps to identify, analyze, and mitigate risks. Use a system, like the one we've discussed, to make sure you're covering all your bases and not missing anything important. It can enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of risk assessment. AI tools can be a big help, but remember, they're tools. You still need human oversight and judgment. By mastering risk assessment, you'll be much better equipped to navigate the complex world of bidding and increase your chances of winning profitable and sustainable contracts.